Hello and welcome. I'm Jim from Cross-Threaded.
And I'm Megan. Today we want to talk about how to compare used car operating costs against one another. We'll use some financial used car knowledge so you don't get fucked.
Let's say that you have $5,000 to spend and you're in the market for a used car. You want something that doesn't crush your spirit too much, but also that won't bleed you with the dedication of a vampire on Adderall.
If you live in the US, you most likely head over to Craigslist. There you'll see you have lots of options in that price range. Everything from Civics to Camrys to, whoa, whatever that is.
Yeah. There are also some luxury cars. Now, what are the ladies gonna think when I pull up in a swanky used luxury car? They'll go, hey, a used luxury car. And who's getting out of it? Oh, a writer.
If you're like us, money's a big factor. Much as we want to look like big shots, we don't want to drop $5,000 on a swanky car and then be stranded because we can't afford to run it day to day.
Yeah. And the idea of car payments gives us both the heebie-jeebies. Now, let's see if we can figure out how operating costs of a couple of cars compare to one another. Here are our contestants we found on Craigslist.
A 2007 Civic at 179,000 miles, a 2007 Cadillac CTS at 135,000 miles, and a 2006 Mercedes-Benz C230 at 189,000 miles.
Yeah. Now bear with us on this one because we'll be using internet data to predict the future, which is basically like asking a kangaroo to play a tuba so that you can attract a unicorn. So don't bother asking Neil deGrasse Tyson's opinion because this ain't astrophysics.
So true. We start with a quick jog over to Goggles to give us the following figures on gas mileage. Assuming 10,000 miles a year, highway only, and $3 per gallon of gas, it'll cost you $750 to drive the Civic, $1,000 for the Mercedes, and $1,011 to drive the CTS.
I think that we can mostly chalk that difference up to the sizes of the vehicles. The Civic weighs a lot less than either luxury car. But gasoline is not the only consumable with which we must concern ourselves. We also need tires. Now, my experience with used cars is that regardless of what the seller says in the ad, you can pretty much guarantee that the tires on the car are shit. Now, I don't mean shit metaphorically. I mean the previous owner actually went out and found a set of tires for the vehicle that are made out of solidified fecal matter.
And even if the car has decent tires on it, sooner or later you will have to buy new ones. We can estimate that cost by going to TireRack.com or DiscountTire.com, for example, put in the vehicle and the year and see what we get. Surprisingly enough, we found options for all three cars that were pretty comparable, just over $300 for a set of tires. Now that's just for the tires, not shipped or installed on the car, but we were surprised that they were so evenly matched.
You're not going to get super fancy performance tires for that money, but I've had good luck with Korean brands like Kumho, which is not to be confused with Come and Go, the US gas station chain.
And if we're going to go, then sooner or later we must stop, and that means we'll be using up brake rotors and pads, which means we'll have to replace them.
For the Civic, we can grab a Centric front brake rotor off Amazon for $36.78. For the CTS, we can use an AC Delco rotor for $40.56, and to stop the Mercedes, front rotors from Centric will run us $51.78. Now, without getting into how smart it is or isn't to buy cheap brake rotors, the fact is that you need beefier brake parts to stop a heavier car, and the Civic is lighter than the other two.
So far, it looks like the Civic is going to be the cheaper option. But what about reliability? Where can we get that figure? The consumer? People love internet reviews, but the problem is that most car owners suffer from buyer pride.
Yeah, humans, as a rule, do not accurately self-report ever. Any conjecture that relies on self-survey of humans is bullshit. Ask someone what they think of the car they just bought, and 95% of the time they're going to say they love it, even if it's a total turd piece. Nobody wants to look like an idiot that just spent a bunch of money on what turned out to be a soft lump of shit.
Nor is the media unbiased. We don't mean to malign our betters in automotive journalism, but the fact is that auto manufacturers spend a lot of money on ads, and ads support most media.
So, is there anyone who isn't supported by ads, doesn't get press cars for free, and thus has a hope of being unbiased? Yes, Consumer Reports. They buy cars anonymously, they test them, and they sell them off. They accept no outside ads or free samples.
For $30 a year, you can pay them to access their opinions on everything from cars to toasters. So like us, they're user supported and thus can say whatever they like. Speaking of which, if you're enjoying this video, we would love to have you as a subscriber. And we'd love it even more if we could have your support on Patreon.
Yeah, we would. Homemade car show people, get on board.
We should also mention Carfax. They sell reports based on a car's vehicle identification number. Well worth it as you're considering any used car in our opinion. There's also AutoCheck and NMVTIS, but we've always used Carfax.
Yeah. Now lastly, call up your insurance agent and ask them what each car will cost you. This is dependent on a lot of personal factors, as well as the black magic insurance companies use to value claims.
We were surprised at the results from our insurance company, and the differences in premiums were substantial. You'll have to do your own research, and these numbers are only useful in comparison to one another because they're based on Jim's driving record.
Yes, and I am an exemplary driver. What? I am.
For the Cadillac, the 6-month premium would be $693. That's close to what Jim pays right now for 2 vehicles. Next comes the Honda, which would be $683. But last, and most surprisingly, the 6-month premium for the Mercedes would be only $531.
Now, that really surprised us. We expected the Civic to be cheapest by a mile, but the added safety features of the Mercedes make insurance companies love it. It's got more airbags than a congressional committee.
Mind you, the airbags in the 2006 C230 are also covered by the Takata airbag recall, which means the airbags in it might decide in a crash to become fragmentation grenades, which would be surprising and undesirable.
So, to sum up, if you're considering used cars, check the miles per gallon, then check what your consumable costs will be. You can talk to your insurance company and check on recalls for that model. Make some educated guesses using whatever data you can find or afford, but be skeptical of the veracity of comments by random internet weirdos.
Except us. Cross-threaded, we are the trustworthy sort of random internet weirdos. Promise.
Oh yeah.